My name is Kelly White, and I live in Council District 9. I am the CEO of the Safe Alliance, the primary organization providing sexual assault and exploitation, child abuse, and domestic violence prevention and intervention services here in our community. Our founding partners are Austin Children's Shelter and Safe Place. We operate Eloise House, the forensic nursing and advocacy program that you've just heard about. Through this program, we conduct forensic exams and provide immediate advocacy and support for teen and adult survivors of sexual assault. I'm here with a very simple message. When several thousand sexual assault kits sit in a backlog at the DNA lab, it is unconscionable that we would even consider not passing the city budget without amendments PS 1.04 and PS 1.07. Yes, we have a grant to help clear up some of the oldest backlog, but in the meantime, that backlog is continuing to grow every single day. You have heard from some of our wonderful, amazing forensic nurses about the fantastic work that they do. As you heard, a forensic exam after a sexual assault is a very invasive and trying experience. It's difficult for the survivors, and it's also very difficult for the nurses. Each exam takes about 4 hours, and it is not unheard of for us to see a dozen survivors in a single weekend. This last weekend, we saw 12. 12 survivors came to Eloise House for forensic exams, and there was one who could not get the exam because her physical injuries were so severe. Our nurses and advocates do this work because they believe in providing compassionate care and justice for the survivors of sexual assault. I believe that our city administration, our council, and our citizens also hold this same belief. I have to believe that. Our nurses and advocates know that collecting and properly processing evidence is an essential step in securing justice for the survivors of sexual assault. Everyone in this process has a job to do. It's our nurses' job to conduct a thorough, professional, and compassionate exam for a survivor. It's APD's job to have the kit properly tested, and it's the City Council's job to find funds in the budget to get these kits tested in a timely and professional manner. Amendment PS 1.04 would provide resources to secure 7 additional analysts and 1 supervisor, consistent with the recommendations of a recent audit of the lab. PS 1.07 would provide funds for the immediate outsourcing of 500 kits to get a jump start on reducing the backlog. That backlog currently includes 3,000 rape kits awaiting testing as part of the old backlog, and at least 1,400 current untested DNA samples. And that backlog grows every single day. These amendments at the bare minimum are needed to get the lab properly staffed and the testing process adequately functioning. Even with these resources, including the grant to clear the oldest backlog, estimates are that it will take 4 years for the DNA lab to process all the kits now sitting on a shelf. Without these resources, the delays in providing justice to survivors of sexual assault could be much, much longer. SAFE's program provided support and exams for 304 sexual assault survivors in just the first 6 months of this year. So while we battle over funding, the backlog continues to grow every day. Research and our experience tell us a few things about sexual assault. We know the majority of sexual assaults, 70% of those reported, are perpetrated by an acquaintance, family, or figure of authority. Given the victim perpetrator profile, it's unlikely that more police officers on the streets would make a difference in this critical public safety issue. A 2015 prevalence study that was done in Texas found that only 9.2% of sexual assault survivors even reported the crime to the police. And too many offenders, sans intervention, go on to reoffend. In other jurisdictions where they have cleared up rape kit backlogs, 50% of the samples matched a perpetrator who was linked to another crime since the rape kit was collected and shelved. Think about what all of this means about our ability to hold rapists accountable for their actions. Quite simply, we don't. Because of my position with SAFE, I can tell way too many horror stories about what a survivor experiences after a sexual assault, and I'm going to just limit myself to one. I have a very close relationship with a young woman who was raped with the use of a date rape drug prior to SAFE's opening of Eloise House. She's a level-headed young woman found incoherent, wandering the streets in the early morning hours, wrapped only in a sheet. She had no memory of what had occurred. I personally sent her to the hospital emergency room for an exam. She chose not to file a report at that time, so she subsequently received an unexpected hospital bill. And that further traumatized a young woman that was putting herself through college. The last time someone checked, her kit had not been tested. And given the way the rape unfolded, there's not a one of us that thinks that this guy has only raped once. He knew what he was doing. Someone else has been raped, and that could be you, your daughter, your niece, your neighbor, or your friend. The fact that it's likely many rapists could be taken off the streets before raping again is never far from my mind. I hate that. And I'm almost done.
You finish your thought.
Thank you. And it should stay in yours as you consider these amendments. We hear from countless survivors that the way the criminal justice system treats them is even more traumatizing than the rape. One last note, we heard from several supporters that in their meetings with their council members, many of you acknowledged that this should be a priority, but it's a tight budget year. I don't envy any of you having to make these decisions. You're trying to balance a budget with many, many competing priorities. Why this priority over another? Well, because it's the city's job to protect its citizens from predators.
Thank you.
Our system and our city aren't doing what needs to be done to prevent and intervene in sexual assault cases. We have a system that has allowed an open season for sexual predators, and it is an abomination.
Ms. White, thank you.
Okay, thank you.